Hello, 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 and welcome to Dr. Bebe on Call podcast. Here to give you your daily dose of okayness. I want to quickly thank any new listeners. Thank you for joining in. Spread the word. Also, returning listeners, as always, thank you and appreciate your continued support. And to my OK Nation, my most dedicated followers, I thank you as always for just receiving the content and just being excited about it. It is so good to be here today. And as always, let me remind you if you check the show notes that you can see how to contact me either via email or you can use the number to text me. Any questions, comments, just, whatever's on your mind, things that you want to hear talked about on this podcast, things you want to hear discussed for any kind of clarity, just use that email, but contact me. Let me know you're listening. It's good to know what some of your thoughts are. So again, that helps me in forming or deciding what will be addressed on the podcast. So again, thank you. Also, if you want to, there's another option for supporting the content. If you find this content encouraging and inspiring, feel free to, again, look in the notes, but feel free to go to Buy Me a Coffee / Coach Norma, and that link will be in the notes. So again, that's another way of supporting. You can support as small as $5, so, and then also you can leave me a note to anything you want to say. So again, let's get to it. I got a comment, or I got a note in an email where a person was expressing how they get frustrated with family members that aren't necessarily doing things they should be doing, or taking advantage of opportunities, or sometimes just making some really bad decisions. But as I always say, I believe the difference between a fool and a wise person really is a decision. And so you ought to get into the habit of thinking twice and speaking once, because we need to make more time, take more time deciding or what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. A lot of times I tell people you need to never let nobody rush you into decisions. You need to be able to, some things you need to sleep on. A sign to me that I'm not supposed to be making a decision is when I'm being rushed. You never have to be rushed into making a decision. You should always have the ability to be able to think some things out. So when I got this email in, one of the first things that I thought about, because the person, I could tell from the way they were writing the question and things that they were saying, is that they are extremely frustrated because a family member is doing something that they themselves would not do, or that they themselves know is just not a good idea. But I'm not as concerned about the family member as I am about my listener. Because one thing you've got to get into your system is you can't understand crazy. And you are going to frustrate yourself. You are going to just mess your own self up trying to figure out why somebody isn't doing what you would do. And for me, whenever I hear people say, well, I'm trying to understand why they did that or why they acted like that, I don't want to understand crazy, because when you begin to understand crazy, you crazy. Because there are some things that there is no reason. There are some things that it is not even worth understanding, because it is just simply bad decisions and actions. So you do not even want to frustrate yourself. You need to get to the place where you just allow people to go through what they have to go through, and hope and pray that they get to a place that they realize that this is just foolishness. Because I've also come to find that common sense just ain't as common as it ought to be. And so we can't spend our time being so upset or so frustrated with people that we're ruining our own lives and our own day trying to figure out why they're doing what they're doing. You can spend a lot of sleepless nights, unnecessary raising your blood pressure, just getting yourself all out of sorts because you're trying to understand why people are making bad decisions. Uh, and even along that same vein, you have to get to the place that you understand that everybody is not going to do what you do. Everybody is not going to respond to situations like you do. So again, you can't, we often make the mistake of assuming, and you know what they say about assuming, but we make the mistake of assuming that because we would respond in a certain way that everybody ought to respond that way, or that it should, or why can't they, or it would be why don't they do what I would have did. Well, everybody's just not you. You might want to look at it like maybe everybody ain't as smart as you, because even though you would have approached it in a different way, or you would have did something different, a lot of times people they're just not at that place, and they're making decisions based on where they're at, or what it is that they think they want, but they're not really thinking things through. Because yes, if somebody had thought it through, or maybe if they had the information you had, or maybe if they had the experience that you have had, that they would have done differently. But unfortunately, as my listener who emailed in, unfortunately, that family member, until they get to the place that they're tired of going through the same thing, as you said, over and over, or experiencing the same hurt and the same pain and the same disappointment over and over, until they get tired of that, they're not really going to listen. They're not really looking for something different. The old folks used to say, a hard head makes a soft behind, because, sometimes just their stubbornness. Some people avoid the right decisions because they're stubborn. I've always found it amazing. There's people I know that it's almost like a spitefulness, that some people, they know the right thing to do, or they know that, this is just bad for me, but some folk don't like to listen. Some people don't want other people telling them what to do, and there's a stubbornness. And some people I've seen can sabotage their own lives trying to not do what they know is the right thing to do. You get people that feel like, hey, I'm grown, I do what I want to do. And even though they know that, this is unhealthy for me, or this is just not something that I should be doing. So, making a long story short, to my listener that is, or any listeners that are frustrated with the people around you, or frustrated with things that you see going on in the world, because this world is full of crazy. This world is full of, I often tell my husband, it seems to me, the older I get, the more it seems like I'm living in an alternate universe. It's like I cannot believe some of the things that I see people do, or some of the things that have become to be acceptable in society. And the things that are often acceptable are the very things that end up driving people to being depressed and being hurt, and continue to experience painful situations, because people are actually doing something that is against, in a sense, who they are. But so as long as people are doing crazy things, you just can't frustrate yourself, because one thing is, you'll never change anybody, and that'll be a whole nother podcast. But you can't change people. You can't until people want to change, or until people see the need to change, you're not going to be able to change them. So being frustrated, being upset, being disappointed, losing sleep, pulling your hair out over what somebody else is doing, in some ways, that's craziness, because you got to realize you can't change that person. So you're going to have to get to the point that I always get to at the end of the day, is that regardless of what everybody else is doing or what's acceptable, for me, it's okay to be okay.